Boys need to be able to break things.
Mhm.
Boys want to blow things up. Boys want to tear things down. And we think of that as destructive, but it's actually very creative. Is I mean, even the technology that we're using here to communicate, it was developed because not some human came up with some ideas, but like men explored, they broke things down, they met challenges, they fixed problems, and to fix problems, you've got to break things, you've got to tear things apart, you've got to break them down to their component parts, and then you've got to build it back up again. And that is masculine behavior. That is what men do. And so little boys, when they're out in the backyard, I think it's the first Toy Story, there's like this kind of loser kid next door, but like he's like blowing stuff up, he's
Yeah,
burning
Sid.
stuff, and yeah, exactly. And you know what? Like we think, okay, that's a troubled boy, but like no, like there are so many things that we have in our modern world today that make life better, make life safer, make life more enjoyable. And I would say that feminine professors will rail against in their university that was created by men, like physically, literally created by men because men do things, they get stuff done, and they break things down. And so if we wish away the masculine nature from humanity and wish that it were more feminine, we had better be ready to be undone with a lot of things that we absolutely rely on. And so you saying, like, being aware as a mom, like, how do I nurture this in my boy? That's hard to do because it's contrary and against your nature as a woman. But God has wired that complexity, if you will, and that contradiction within humanity. And it's a fascinating thing to be able to study it as Christians. Again, looking at the book of scripture, but also looking at the book of nature.
Mm.
Well, and this is where I think thinking through how there are these good parts of male nature
Hmm.
that, of course, can be taken to levels where they become destructive or harmful,
Yeah.
and how God has also given us female nature that kind of helps to harness that or bring some discipline to that. So I think about, I mean, as you're talking about this idea of tearing down, a lot of people could think like, you know, what's good about that? But you think about even my buddy who lives next door, he's a mason,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
he's tearing down things all the time
Mhm.
in his business.
Yeah.
And people actually want him to do that. They want him to tear down this old fireplace or this old barbecue, brick barbecue.
Mhm.
And so they tear that stuff down, and
Yeah.
there's a good to that, remove that. And then he constructs something, much better and
Yeah.
more beautiful.
Mhm.
And it gives him that opportunity to build or rebuild. And now I guess the destructive side, I'm thinking like guys could just want to just build and then tear down and build and tear down. And,
Just
Yeah.
burn it all down.
and this is where, or sometimes you build and you lose some of the investment in it. And this is where I notice, I think women and my wife in particular help me with the nurturing side, because like, okay, now we built a house.
Hmm.
A lot of guys would be like, okay, let's tear it down, build another one, try it again, do it even better. Whereas a woman comes in and helps to say, hey, all right, now let's nurture this, let's build this into a home, and you can't
Yeah.
just constantly build and tear down.
Mm.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because you were talking, Brett, about the building and the tearing down, the guy doing that. You know what that is that's an immature masculinity. It
Mm.
is like, no, I just love the sensation of tearing apart. But mature men, they know that they're tearing down for a larger purpose. I mean,
Mm.
you were talking about the home building stuff. I think about that, like ladies' home shows. You know what? They have demo sessions in there. And the guys are like, all right, that's awesome. They're tearing it down. But the mature man, and even the mature teenager realizes that I am just not being destructive for destruction's sake. I am being destructive for a higher good, for a
Mm.
higher purpose. And that's the thing that we need to put within our boys, that your masculine power to tear down, to break apart, to burn down, that needs to lead to a higher good. And so, like you were saying, you build up a home, you invest in it, you create it. But now a good man, he sits out in his backyard in his lawn chair and he looks at his house and he thinks about how wonderful it is. And not just the house in itself, but that's the house that my family lives in. That's the
Mhm.
house that keeps my family safe. That's the house that keeps my family secure. And that the man has a unique masculine sense of satisfaction. Women will have that same sort of satisfaction when they look at their house, but men have a different one. And it's about his energy is toward providing good things for the people that he loves and cares for the most. And that is mature masculinity. Masculinity is not just energy unleashed on its own, it's energy toward a purpose. And that energy is to care for the weak, the needy, the feminine, children, and the people that he loves the most.
Mm. So Glenn, you talk about in the book, and we could talk to you about this stuff for hours, but you talk about in the book the unique way that, I mean, because you break the book up into sections. The second
Yeah.
section is about mothers and fathers,
Mhm.
which is why anyone listening, we just recommend the book so much. This is just a taste of what you get. But so in this topic of boys and raising good men,
Yeah.
you talk about how dads can help with this
Mhm.
and how moms can help with this. And one part in your book that I have highlighted and underlined is that moms need to be the stick to push the boys and dad needs to be the carrot. You give this,
Yeah.
and I love that. But
Yeah.
when you said mom needs to be the stick, I highlighted and underlined that because my natural bent is to nurture my
Yes.
boys. And so they start becoming these men, and our 13-year-old is now taller, weighs more than me, much
Mhm.
stronger than me because now he's gone through puberty.
Mhm.
And so he needs me to push him to be a man and
Yeah.
not keep nurturing him like he's my little 3-year-old. But dad plays a unique role too. So maybe just a little taste on what moms and dads, how we can help our boys to become good men.
Yeah, and I mean, you just hit it. And the big thing is understanding that mom has an essential role to play and dad has an essential role to play, and they're very different ways. The carrot and the stick thing is what I am talking about in there, and you laid it out so nicely, is how do you guide a young boy into manhood? And in a way, there's this phrase called cut the apron strings. You know,
Mhm.
that is that truth. A mother needs to push her boy in the male direction. You know what? I'm not your object. I am not your destination. Your destination is your dad. And I need to push you in that direction. Be more
Mhm.
like him. And then the dad is welcoming. He's drawing the boy in. He's welcoming the boy to say, hey, I'm your future. I'm your destination. And maybe even not to be necessarily the kind of man that I am. You know, I'm a big, tough firefighter or I'm a philosophy professor or whatever. But let the little boy become the boy that he has been wired and made by God to be. But the dad is inviting, the dad is drawing in. No little boy is ever shamed by other males into manhood. I mean, that's just an absolute human universal. They are welcomed in. And those little
Mhm.
boys so much want to be a part of that. And one of the interesting things is, and I'll talk about this from just an international or cross cultural thing, we hear like very primitive cultures that the boy must go out on a hunt and he must kill an animal. And liberals will go, oh, that's so, so violent and so, that's where men get those awful instincts. For that little boy in that primitive culture, it is not about the violence. It is about going out and achieving something and bringing back the kill,
Mm.
not for his own masculinity, but for his service to the community. When he sees the women in his tribe saying, "Oh my goodness, this is the biggest caribou that we've ever had." And when he sees men eating the thing that he captured, that he killed, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, like this is the best I've ever had." He is being brought into the fraternity of manhood, not because of his conquest, but because of his provision, because he has provided something essential to the community that he's a part of. And that boy is forever changed because of that experience. And so women need to, like, yes, you need to go out and become a hunter. And the dad is like, you need to become one of us. And the analogy for hunting today is working, learning a skill, producing, doing things that are important to the community. And that's how masculinity is developed. And in certain communities in our culture in the United States and some in the developed world, when men don't have that sense of I'm contributing to my community, two things that they fall to: gang activity, um, pimping women, controlling women, and drug activity, those kinds
Mm.
of things. But when a boy learns to produce for his community and learns that from his dad and learns from his mom that producing and giving to the community is a good, productive, valuable thing, his sense of manhood just wells up in his chest. And that is very, very significant.